If you're using AI to promote your business, I don't think that you're harnessing your true potential because there's no one asking you about your story. There's no one connecting. In my experience in business and where I've become successful is through connection.
Hi, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trachtenberg. On the show, you'll hear interviews with innovative creative artists, entrepreneurs, business executives, and thought leaders. You'll have a front row seat as they explore their internal, uncharted waters about what inspires them to grow, achieve, and innovate. Get their insights and realizations as I tease out answers to questions they've never pondered before. You'll also learn how to supercharge your innovative drive, mindfulness, and communication skills so you can succeed. This episode is brought to you by my favorite productivity hack, the Brain FM app, this podcast's host, Podbean, as well as my book, Speak From Within, Engage, Inspire, and Motivate Any Audience. Hello, and welcome to the Creative Solutions Podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trachtenberg. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. I'm super grateful that you're here. I'm also really excited to introduce you to this week's guest. Amber Gelina is a Vancouver copywriter who specializes in branding. And you know, I've been talking about branding a lot, so this is especially exciting for me to have her on the show. Amber uses clever copywriting and takes ordinary businesses and turns them into legendary brands. A sober queen, she's passionate about mental health awareness and ending stigma. Known for her soulful insight and witty banter, she brings tons of personality and entertainment to the table. She's in the process of writing an exciting tell-all about her time in Australia and journey through reality TV. When she's not working on her book, you're going to find her traveling the world and sharing her self-care tips on Instagram. Amber, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
This is so fascinating. I love that you are what Marie Forleo calls multi-passionate, right? You're multi-focused person. You're a copywriter, you're doing work with health, you've been on reality TV, all sorts of things. I'm wondering if you can just give a little bit of this is who I am, and this is how I got here. So you're a copywriter, but you obviously weren't always. How did you get from where you were to being someone who helps other people with branding?
Yeah, well, what happened was I did my stint on reality TV and I was living in Australia at the time. And working on reality TV opened up a lot of doors for me. And I actually started working for New Idea magazine, which is like Australia's version of Us Weekly.
Mm.
And I started doing a column and I had my own little segment and I had so much fun doing it. And when my contract with them ended, I had some opportunities to write for television and film. And I really enjoyed that. And then I was like, why am I working on other people's ideas? I should be working on my own. And
Mm.
so I applied to go to film school at Vancouver Film School, which is a very prestigious film school in Canada. And I got in on a scholarship. And inside of the curriculum was a course on copywriting. And I fell in love with it.
Mm.
It's marketing, it's advertising, it's creativity, it's writing, it's selling, it's business, it's all the things that I love and all the things that I have experience with. And it's also, and to me, in my opinion, it's also entertainment. When you're writing copy or writing content, you're entertaining with words. And I think that's such a talent and such a gift. And I think it's a bit of a lost art as well.
Now that's interesting because people think about copywriting. They often think about when you want to copyright a book. In other words, you want to make sure that everybody knows that it's yours. But you're talking about copywriting for, like you just said, it's creative, it's for businesses. Can you tell me a little bit about exactly what a copywriter does? And how does your approach set you apart from other people who are doing copywriting?
Of course. You know what's so funny is that I get that a lot. People are like, "So you do the C with the little circle around it?" I'm like,
Right.
"No, no, no, that's not me. I'm not in charge of that one." But what a copywriter is, maybe a better reference for it is calling myself a content writer. I think it's more of an industry term to say copywriter. That's more of
Hmm.
a marketing and advertising term. And it's really writing content. So I provide written content for everything like blogs, articles, websites, captions on social media. Um, you name it, I kind of do it. It's almost like being a ghostwriter for businesses is kind of what copywriting is. And I really enjoy what I do. And what sets me apart from others is that I focus on branding and I focus on unique storytelling because everybody has a story. Everybody has how they got to where they are, what was their passion behind it, what inspired them, what is their story. And I really am invested in people and telling those stories. And I really want to get to know people and develop a brand from inside of their story.
It's so fascinating. On my website, where I do workshops and I teach companies how to be creative and have their teams collaborate. And the very first thing you see when you open up my website is we are all storytellers. So I'm like, yay, go
Yes.
you for doing that. So what's interesting to me though is when you're in there and there's a psychology behind it. You said everybody has a story with which I completely agree. And here's the thing though, how do you determine each person's story? Like I'm assuming you're not working with just one client. You probably have a variety of clients, and they're probably all different businesses, different people, all of that. How do you figure out their story in order to be able to write the content using, I guess, the perspective or the details of their story?
It all starts with a discovery call. And inside of that call, what I do is I really get to know who the person is, what their business is about, what they're passionate about, how they got to where they are, what their mission is, what their values are, what they stand for, and what's meaningful to them. Where do they want to be? What do they want to be known for? What is the legacy that they're leaving behind as a business and as a brand? And it's not just in asking those questions like, oh, so what kind of brand do you want to be? It's it's a little more in depth than that, and it's really a conversation and getting to know someone. I do a lot of my meetings virtually because I work with clients all over the world, and it's like sitting at a cafe and having a cup of coffee with a friend. That's how I get to know your story because I think that's how stories are built. They're not built on scripted narratives of I'm going to send you a questionnaire. They're kind of like the conversation we're having right now. They're an effortless ebb and flow of exchange of stories and experiences and likes and dislikes and trials and tribulations and what brought you to this very point in time. And I think the only way to get to know that on a really authentic level is to authentically connect with others.
I love that you said that. The authenticity piece it's profound to me because most of us have a little trouble being fully ourselves. And certainly you look at things like Instagram and all the other social channels, and it feels curated. It feels like the person is bringing you their very best smile and their very best self instead of necessarily their authentic self. So I'm wondering, when someone is looking to bring their business, bring themselves, whether it's an influencer or somebody who's got I don't know, a plumbing business, I'm not sure, but how how do they decide that a copywriter is someone that they would want to hire? In other words, there's so much content. There's also Chat GPT and all those other AI things that people are using now. Can you shed a little light on the value that a skilled copywriter can bring to a business, especially with that authenticity piece being something that's very important?
Yes, I would love to touch on that. I think if anyone has used ChatGPT, you'll know why you shouldn't use it to promote your business or design your website content because it's generic. It's generic, it's basic, it's boring, it's cookie cutter. You can tell when someone has used AI. Like if you're using AI to promote your business, I don't think that you're harnessing your true potential because there's no one asking you about your story. There's no one connecting. In my experience in business and where I've become successful is through connection. is through authenticity, is through making meaningful connections. And you can't do that with something like ChatGPT. When you give cookie cutter phrases and cookie cutter quotes, you're going to get cookie cutter people. And that's not really what good business is about. Like, you know, I'm more for building excitement, enticing people, exciting people, getting people in the mood for your service, getting people inspired to work with you. That's so much better than just being like, yeah, okay, I said yes, we're gonna work together. You know, I want people to be lit up. I want people to be excited. And I think it takes a human copywriter and it takes someone who knows language, someone who speaks, who articulates, who knows what questions to ask to, deliver the type of written content that you can't do yourself because not everyone's good with words, right? And I think it makes a huge difference when once you've experienced working with a skilled copywriter or once you've seen the work of a skilled copywriter, if you go to someone's website and you think, wow, that was good. I really like what they said and I felt really engaged and I felt like I know them. I felt like they were talking to me through their website. I could feel the connection. That is what a good copywriter should be doing. That is what a good writer should be doing, is connecting to that emotional being and that emotional sense that all humans innately have.
I'm really fascinated by what you just said because there's a combo to me. There is the person's story who is the business owner, but then there is sort of the need or the I guess the need is the best word, is the need of their potential client and customer. So how do you as a copywriter marry the story of that person to the need of their potential clients and customers? Is it that more universal connection that you're talking about, or is there some special copywriting thing that you can do that would evaluate what the needs of those potential clients and customers are to address those needs when you're doing the copywriting for a specific website or specific content marketing?
That's an excellent question. And I think the biggest thing, and what I get my clients to do, is I get them to build profiles. Who is your ideal client? Who get detailed? Tell me who they are. Tell me how much money they make. Tell me what kind of family they have, if they have a family. Do they have pets? What are they passionate about? What kind of clothes do they wear? What kind of products are they buying? Tell me about their likes and their interests. And I think once you know who your ideal client is and who your target audience is, that's where the money is. Because I think that it's important to have your ideal client and to have a target audience, because when you get a little bit too generic and you're like, well, I'm selling to everyone. Well, I think you should streamline. And I think that there's a lot of value in streamlining. And I think there's a lot of value in knowing how to cater to a certain audience, like it's there's more power in it, I would say.
I'm taking a second. You'll notice that I do that because I'm listening to what you're saying and I'm trying to synthesize, but I'm like, let me think about it. I love that you said power. And there is a relationship that's implied when you say, oh, I want to find out who these people, potential clients and customers are, so that I know who I'm talking to. But some of that you can think of as the branding of the client of your client, of the business, right? Sort of their positioning. But a lot of people talk about branding, but we don't know exactly what it is, right? It might not be clear. Can you can you share some insights on what branding entails and why businesses might think it's needed and it's essential?
Well, what I always tell people is think of your business like a house, and your house is the business. But in order to have a house stay up, you need to lay a strong foundation, and your brand and your branding is that strong foundation. It's not just, a clever color palette and some fonts that you're going to use. It's so much deeper than that. It's about who you are, how you operate, why you operate that way, who your target audience is, who your clients are, what you foresee, what your values are, what your ambitions are, what you represent, what who you are at the deepest core as a business, that is your brand. And the value in that is that you know who you are, you know how to market yourself. And when you know how to market yourself, you're going to gain business and you're going to attract those ideal clients. You're going to attract what your niche is. And having that really strong branding is so essential for a successful business.
Hmm. I'm listening and I'm kind of going, okay, yes, I get that it's essential. And lots of people struggle with it because they don't fundamentally know, right? So for example, if you own a yoga studio, I don't know, I'm making these up as I go along. So you own a yoga studio and you are primarily interested in working with uh women, potentially women who are expectant mothers. So you're doing sort of prenatal or natal yoga. And there is this communication, right? You need to know their needs, but you also need to know what's going to elevate your own company, what's going to get people to know who you are and to know what your reputation is, right? So if we're talking about branding as a way of elevating a company's presence in the market, what is the first thing you think that somebody should be doing to begin that process?
I think the first thing that you should be doing is soul searching. I think it's important for you, like, you can hire me as a branding coach or as a copywriter, but I can't answer the questions for you. That's something that has to come from within. And it's really about identifying who you are, what you stand for, what you're passionate about, and getting clear on those answers. So I kind of wish I had a better answer, but you
it's
know,
it's not an easy question because, and I get that it's not an easy question because we're inundated with on one hand we're inundated with do it yourself, and B, we're also constantly, as I said earlier, being shown everybody else's quote unquote perfect life or perfect work. And I remember the days of Instagram being, you're going to have one pink meme and then your picture and then the next pink meme and then your picture and then next, so that everything looked like a checkerboard and it was going to be all perfect and pretty. And people pretty quickly realized that it was not feeling authentic, right? So, and people started struggling with, okay, well, how do I bring my authentic self to this when it's supposed to be this very perfect thing? And so, for you as a business owner yourself, did you have any struggle around that? And if so, how did you resolve some of those issues?
absolutely. I definitely had struggles around that as a business owner. And it's funny because I can talk about branding all day until I'm blue in the face. And when it comes to doing my own branding, I'm rubbish. I
Mm,
can't do it. I wish I could. It's kind of like talking about yourself or doing your own resume. And it's like it's easier for someone else to see your features. And
mm,
I always tell people you need to know when to hire out, you need to know when to outsource, you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And for me, when I struggled with my own branding, I was like, I need to outsource and I need to get another creative on board and I need to collaborate. That was the piece that was missing for me was collaboration.
mm-hmm.
And working with someone else who has a creative perspective that can be like, oh, hey, maybe this would work, or maybe that would work. Or, just having that kind of ping pong of ideas with another creative was so powerful for me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, we're sort of in many ways talking about the same kind of thing. For me, with my business, I'm always in that space of working with other businesses and trying to get them to collaborate internally, but also creatively. And so they come to me when they're like, yeah, we tried it internally and it's not working internally. So we decided to go elsewhere. So when you're doing that, when you're helping another company find that the key to the formula, if you will, what would you say are some of the key reasons that they should outsource copywriting or branding or design or anything like that? What do you think people should be thinking of as they decide to do it? And also, what are the criteria that they should be judging who to hire with?
Yeah, so there's a couple of questions in there, and I want to make sure I address them all. So, in order to decide who you want to work with, I would say you definitely want to work with someone who has a proven track record. You want to have someone who has a portfolio and take the time to read through their portfolio. And, every writer has their own tone, their own voice, their own narrative, their own style. And make sure that it's a style that aligns with you, your likes, your wants, your needs, personally and professionally. And that would be my number one recommendation. And someone who has client testimonials, because it's important to know that someone has a track record of working with others and that they've done that successfully, not just in the products that they've produced for their clients, but in the way that they've worked with their clients and their interactions and their communication style and their efficiency levels and stuff like that. I think that is so important. And lastly, find someone you like, because this is someone that you're going to work with, and you want to work with someone who has the same values as you do. For instance, I really value communication, and I really like it when my clients value communication as well, because it's so important, especially when we're working in different parts of the world, to stay in communication with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And find someone who you like, who you click with, who you just feel that kind of spark. It's like any relationship. You want to find someone who is not only capable, qualified, but you want to find someone that you just like.
I feel a little bit like we're talking about dating here. It's interesting. The thing that popped into my head as you were talking, Amber, was someone you've got chemistry with. And I feel that way when I work with people who I work with for the long term, with whom I end up having some sort of a professional relationship for a long time. And I wanted to say that so that my husband doesn't get jealous when he listens to this episode. But there is a chemistry with people that you click with. There's something that makes you feel like, oh, this person is someone I want to work with. This person is someone I want to hire, or this is someone I want to work for, depending on which side of the business that you're talking about. So what are some of the things you said you value communication, and I appreciate that. You have no idea how much, but what are some of the beyond the words? What are some of the elements that you focus on to ensure that you're going to have good working relationships with your clients, but also so that their brands stand out and resonate with that audience, those potential clients that we were talking about earlier?
For me, it's again tying back to the story. It really, what I focus on is authenticity and story. Those are the two major elements, because no one can take away who you are, and that's what makes you special. And that to me is such a huge selling point. And embracing the individuality of businesses, of brands, and, celebrating uniqueness. I think that's what really stands out. And then the storytelling is so important because, as I said before, every story is unique and everyone has a story to tell.
I, yeah, yay! I'm an Amber Gelina cheerleader now. Yeah, I agree with you completely. And there's something to me very powerful about telling your story. And I have to say that that there's uh, there's a vulnerability attached to that, right? When you're a business and you're telling your story and how you came to be where you are and why you're trying to serve the people you're trying to serve and all of that, it takes a vulnerability in my mind to be able to do that. And it takes a certain amount of confidence at the same time that almost that you deserve, that you're entitled to have your say, to say these words, to be out there with your story.
I
Can you
think
talk? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think allowing yourself to know that you're worthy. You're worthy of telling your story. You are worthy of being a 5-star, 10-star, bajillion star business. And you're worthy of having an amazing, legendary brand that's here to stay and it's here to build a legacy for you. And I think it's so important to remind ourselves that we're worthy.
Yeah, I agree completely. And that's kind of what I was getting to. But it's interesting because in telling the story through copywriting, through the branding, there is that, again, that vulnerability, that feeling of worth, that has a sort of a mental health aspect to it, that you have to feel like you're allowed to do it. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how your work around mental health impacts your work as a copywriter, as a brand specialist, and vice versa. How does your work as a copywriter telling other people's stories impact your work around mental health?
You know what? It's really interesting that you tie the two together. And for me, writing has always been a release. Writing has actually been a huge coping tool since I can remember, since I was little. And it was when I didn't have anyone to talk to, when there were
Mm,
things going on in my home that I didn't have a supportive family that I could talk to. So I would write down my feelings on paper and pen. And that's how I released. That's how I started writing. That's how I translated my emotions, and that's how I catered to my mental health. And that really ties into what I do now. Like writing for me to this day is still a release. And it's this like nourishing vitamin that feels so good for my soul. And when I show other people what I can do with my writing and I'm able to tell their stories and inspire them. And when I have a happy client who's like, wow, I would have never like said that about myself. I would have never encapsulated that. And
mm,
thank you for capturing that for me. That lights me up. That excites me so much. When I'm able to take your story and who you are and show you who you are, because oftentimes we can own a mirror, but we don't actually look in it. And we don't get a true reflection of ourselves. That kind of imposter syndrome, that I'm not worthiness comes back in and it trickles in really easily. And oftentimes we don't see how great we are. I think especially as women too, we don't celebrate how friggin' amazing we are. And
mm.
so as a copywriter and as an outsider looking in, when I can come in and I can share that and I can tell your story and what I see as an outsider, and I get to celebrate that with you and show you, that's a gift. And I think anyone who reads something great about themselves, whether it be their business or just them personally, that's such a great way to cater to our mental health.
It really is. And it's so interesting that you say that because I feel like you said earlier, it's much easier to be someone else's cheerleader than it is to be your own cheerleader. And that's a challenge, especially women. We face that challenge all the time. And so I wonder, like, I do this, I have this practice that I've had for 20 some odd years. Whenever I'm out and about and I see a woman walking down the street, sitting in a restaurant, whatever, I have stopped women for the last 20 years, at least once a day, and told them that I think they're beautiful and or that I love their outfit or I love their hair or something. And a friend of mine said, "Don't people look at you like you're weird?" And I said, "No, because in over 20 years I've been doing it, I have never had anything other than a stellar positive interaction with most of the time women going, oh, wow, thank you." And that is that buoying up that you were talking about. So can you talk a little bit about what we can be doing for ourselves and for each other, more as women, because you and I are both women, but how can we prioritize self care, even if what we're doing is taking care of everybody else or running a business? What are your thoughts on that?
We as women, we'll just talk about women specifically and those who identify as women, we have to carve the time out for ourselves. We have to make the time, whether it's waking up an hour earlier or staying up an hour later or over the lunch break, dedicating some time or allocating. I have 2 hours on the weekend that I'm going to dedicate to myself. Let's say you don't have a couple of hours. Let's say you have 15 minutes. Take 15 minutes a day to read a book. Take 15 minutes a day to journal. Take as little or as much time as you possibly can for yourself. Sit down and take a deep breath and be silent for 5 minutes, because so many women, especially busy moms who are not only moms but career women as well, and we're constantly juggling all these things at once, and we don't even take time to sit down and breathe. And it's so important to carve out that time, but that's your responsibility. We're each responsible for that. And to me, I tell myself I'm worthy of this extra hour. I'm worthy of this. And I always think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs,
Mm,
because if you don't have that base level of, your food, shelter, water, self, love, all those things. If I don't take care of myself, what good am I to anyone else?
For sure.
And so that's how I prioritize myself. I always remind myself, what good am I to anyone else if I don't take care of myself? And whenever I think about that, it tells me I deserve this time out for myself. I deserve a date with myself. I deserve to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours, a whole day, you know? And once I got into the habit of honoring myself with that time and that care and that attention, I was like, ooh, I like this. And it became this habitual ritual. And it's something that, I take myself out on a date every Sunday from 10 a.m. till 12 p.m. That's my religion. That's my church. That's what I do for myself. And I have a date with myself for 2 hours a day. No one else is invited. And that is my time for me every single week.
Oh, I love that so much. In Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, she calls it an artist's date. And I do that also. It's not usually Sunday, but at least once a week. And I think that that's amazing, especially for me. I go to a new place. I go somewhere I have never been before and I explore it and see what are the cool things I can learn. And so I actually want to ask you about that. Travel seems to be a pretty significant part of your life. How has your travel, how have the cultures and the people that you've met influenced your approach to telling your clients' stories, telling to copywriting and to branding?
I love that you asked that question. And, I've been so blessed to have traveled all over the world by the time I was in my 20s. And I actually recently got back from Kenya and I had this amazing, amazing journey. I went there on a volunteer mission and I volunteered with Bethel Caring Academy, which is a pre-primary school that caters to children. It's it's funny because they say they cater to children 2 to 5, but then
Mm-hmm.
on my first day, someone handed me a baby and was like, "Amba, take care of this." I'm like,
Mm.
"Oh, okay." And then we had children all the way up to like 7 years old, and it was really an open door policy for children in need in the area. And it was really beautiful. I was able to teach art and be a teacher's assistant at the school. And my experience in traveling the world and learning about different cultures, exploring different vast areas of life, meeting new people, experiencing people's stories and people's backgrounds and people from all different backgrounds has been such a blessing to my writing because it's allowed me to be more creative. It's allowed me to expand my creative horizons and to really grow as a creative. And, it's you pick up little things from different cultures, like you pick up little colloquialisms and little sayings and stuff like that. And I think that's such a fun way to inject uniqueness into writing. And I love doing that. It shows personality. I like to keep writing fun. I like to give it that personality. So that's definitely how traveling has impacted me in a couple ways.
That's awesome. So let me ask you before I know I could keep you here for the next 6 hours, but I won't. I know you have a day to get back to, but I would love it if you would sort of go through what does a successful branding or copywriting relationship with a client look like? Like, how does somebody find you and what do you do and what will you help them with? And when do you stop? Is there a point at which they go, okay, I'm done. I have all the things that I need, or I know how to do it enough myself. What is all of that? Can you trace it for me, please?
Yeah, so it all starts, as I said, with a discovery call. And I offer all my clients a free 30-minute discovery call. And that's an opportunity for us to get to know each other. It's kind of a handshake and a coffee to say, hey, how are you? This is who I am. This is who you are. Tell me a little bit about your business, a brief overview. I want to hear about your goals, your struggles, your areas of expertise. And let's find out if we're a good fit to work with one another. Because again, building that client relationship is so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say from there, we're like, yes, this is amazing. This is a match. What we'll do from there is I usually have a questionnaire that I go through, but I prefer to do it as an interview. And so I'm picking up on, the mannerisms, the way that you're answering. I can not just follow a script. We do it over a Zoom call. And it's again much like we're doing right now, kind of an interview style where I'm really picking up pieces of your personality and I'm going to tailor that into the copywriting that I do for you.
Mm.
And from there, what I have is I have kind of a skeleton of what I work from. And then I will create a first draft, and I usually do a couple of drafts just to get a feel for, do you like this vibe? Do you like that vibe? And then we'll go through that together and we'll say, like, oh, I like this, or I didn't like this, or can we change this? There's an opportunity for revisions. And then usually that's the end of our journey. And what I'm going to be doing in the next few months here is offering coaching for my clients. And what that coaching is ongoing assistance and ongoing support and education with things like branding, with things like marketing, with things like building your business, with your day-to-day, what are your struggles? What are your pain points? What's missing in your business? And again, it sometimes takes that outsider looking in to have perspective. And by having a coach, coaching is so important. Coaching is, in a sense, it's almost like therapy, but your therapist is really cool and like knows you on this personal level. And it's this great exchange. It's like a therapist mixed with a really amazing mentor. That's how I see
Mm.
coaching. And that's what I plan to offer my clients. And that should be launching in the next couple months here.
Oh, that's awesome. I heard something recently that I loved, and that was that a therapist is an archaeologist and a coach is an architect. And I love that. I think that that's a brilliant way of delineating between the two.
It's so true. I love that.
Yeah, I heard that and I was like, this is perfect. So Amber, honestly, again, I could keep you here forever, but I know you have things to do. So I would love it if somebody goes, okay, I want to get a discovery call with Amber, or I want to know more about her. Can you do me a favor and share what's the best way for somebody to get a hold of you? I know you said you have an Instagram account, so if you could share that, because people learn differently. Some need to see it, some want to hear it. Where can someone find you if they want to know more about the work you're doing and or this coaching program that you're going to be starting?
The best way to get a hold of me is through my website at www.therightchoice.ca. And right is spelled WRITE.
Mhm.
And my Instagram is underscore the right choice underscore. And you can feel free to send me an email. It's hello at therightchoice.ca. And I'm always available to my clients through email, through Instagram. You can go ahead and book that free half-hour discovery call through my website. And there's a contact section where you can fill out a form, and I will get back to you and we'll set something up. And I look forward to meeting you.
That's awesome. Thank you. And as I said, I'm going to be putting, if you heard that and you're like, wait, I didn't write it all down. That's okay. You can just go to the show notes and you can find all the links that Amber just mentioned so that you can click on them and learn more about Amber and how she's helping businesses succeed. Amber, I am super grateful that you took the time to be here. I have just two more questions, and they're questions that I ask everybody who comes on the show. And the first question is, what is the thing that makes you get out of bed in the morning? And I don't just mean your alarm.
What gets me out of bed in the morning? Anxiety? No, kidding. Um, what gets me out of bed in the morning? It's really my sobriety. My sobriety gets me out of bed every morning, and I wake up every morning with a smile on my face, and I'm grateful for each day and each moment that I have being sober.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is lovely. And one day at a time, and yay for you. Good for you. I understand the struggle, and I am incredibly happy for you that you are in your sobriety and in recovery and putting both feet on the floor every morning. That's amazing. Yeah, wow. And the last question, and before I ask it, I want to again say thank you for being on the show. This has been such an awesome chat. The question is this: if you had an airplane, environmentally friendly, of course, that could skywrite anything for the whole world to see, what would you say?
You are worthy of love.
Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful.
It's such an important message that I want people to know. And it's funny, I just posted on Instagram about it today, and I think that there's so much that goes on, especially online and social media, with online bullying, and it's so easy to say harmful or hurtful things to people online when you're behind a keyboard and when you don't have
Sure.
to face that person face to face. But these are real people, and your words matter, and words have an impact. And I think it's important to spread messages of love and let people know. And a practice that I have, it's kind of like what you said with your compliments, complimenting strangers. Every morning, as part of my online engagement, I find random people and I like their posts, and I comment and I just tell them you are worthy of love.
That's so lovely. What a great practice.
Yeah, it's so important to spread love to people, and I just want everyone to know that you're worthy, you are loved, you can do anything.
That's also another great thing to skywrite. You are worthy, you are loved, you can do anything. That's beautiful. Amber, once again, thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you taking the time. This has been lovely and delightful.
Thank you for having me.
Such fun. All right. So you now, if you're listening to this and you want to know more about what Amber Gelina is doing, you're going to want to go to her website, the right choice and .ca, not .com. Remember that Amber's in Canada. And if you're listening to this and you want to know more, you know what to do. This is Izolda Trachtenberg for the Creative Solutions Podcast, reminding you, as always, to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the show if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Izolda Trachtenberg and is copyright 2024. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.